To say that 2017 was not the best year is, let's be honest, an understatement. So let's look back at 4 things which I think made this year go so very wrong. And in the name of balance, and just to avoid being completely depressing, let's also look at 4 bright spots as well. Are you with me? I've divided my best and worst this year into 4 categories: politics, the planet, culture, and personal. Links to my sources, where needed, are at the end of the video and of course in the description on YouTube. Ready? Let's get started. First, politics. To those who know me, it's no surprise that I believe that the Trump presidency is, and has been, an unmitigated disaster. Agency after agency run by people who lack qualifications, and even oppose the works and missions of the very agency they're supposed to be running. A chaotic and unstable White House that equates racists and Nazis with those who stand up to oppose them. That promotes fear and hate of anyone different. With a president who seems to believe that the role of president is tyrant or dictator. There is mounting evidence that Trump, his family, and his campaign colluded with Russia to win the presidency. Treason. And, more than ever, the U.S. has become government by the rich, of the rich, and for the rich, at the expense of everyone else. For the best, on the other hand, we have Jeremy Corbyn in the UK. Corbyn's tenure as leader of Labour has been troubled. There are forces within his own party that want him to fail, that undermine him and try to ensure that he fails. Because victory for Corbyn disproves their lie that only a Tory light can win. Theresa May thought she could use this division within Labour to effectively bring that party to its knees. Even many within Labour were convinced that the snap election she called would be Labour's worst loss in decades. But Corbyn stepped up, campaigning across the country, advocating a message of hope. Of, to borrow the American phrase that America itself has forsaken, of government by the people, of the people, and for the people. And while he didn't win enough seats for Labour to take the government, the groundswell of support shocked the establishment, and, for a couple months at least, stopped the saboteurs within Labour in their tracks. Hope for a better future indeed. For the planet, 2017 saw one of the worst hurricane seasons since records began, as climate change continued to intensify weather patterns. In the Atlantic, there were 17 named storms, including 10 hurricanes that all hit one after another, with the highest total accumulated cyclone energy on record. And it wasn't just North America and the Caribbean. Severe storms, flooding, and related landslides struck Zimbabwe, China, Peru, Congo, Sri Lanka, Colombia, Sierra Leone, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. These weather patterns affect across the world, from Puerto Rico to South Asia. The damage and loss of life has been and continues to be catastrophic. Nor is it just storms and bad weather. In June, the western U.S. experienced the most intense heat wave ever to strike so early in the year, with San Diego County recording its highest ever temperature, 124 degrees Fahrenheit. Wildfires raged over the summer and fall. More than 9.5 million acres have burned in the U.S. this year. So, yes, Virginia, there is climate change. And in the middle of this, Donald Trump withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord. The best news for the planet is that, despite the U.S. having abandoned its leadership role in the world, other countries have stood forward. As of November, 195 countries have signed the agreement, and 172 have become party to it. China, which is claimed by Trump as his excuse for abandoning the accord, is actually a leader in the fight against climate change. That country canceled over 100 planned new coal plants, and its coal consumption has fallen since 2013. In the U.S., multiple states, California leading the way, are picking up the mantle that Trump has so carelessly tossed aside, doing everything in their power to continue to meet targets. Meanwhile, costs for solar panels and wind turbines have come down about 90% in the last decade, making these renewable power sources available to far more people. So, again, in a year full of despair, there is some room for hope. In culture, as we get older, we inevitably see the faces of our childhood slip away. 2017 has been no exception. This year, we lost, to name just a few, Mary Tyler Moore, Roger Moore, David Bowie, John Hurt, John Hurd, Martin Landau, Tom Petty, Bill Paxton, David Cassidy, Batman's Adam West, Jerry Lewis, Battlestar Galactica's Richard Hatch, Don Rickles, Robert Guillaume. And again, that's to name just a few of the celebrities that we've lost. My pick for the best in culture is the Me Too movement. Let's make no mistake, the misogynist culture is alive and well. But this year, a few brave women raised their voices and started a groundswell, a movement. Women, and yes, some men, came forward and talked about their treatment by men and women in power, in politics, in entertainment, in the news industry, and elsewhere. Powerful people in Hollywood, like Harvey Weinstein or Kevin Spacey, lost, or at least appear to have lost, their careers and reputation. Senate candidate Roy Moore had been widely expected to win until revelations and accusations surfaced of his pursuit of underage women. UK Defense Secretary Michael Fallon was forced to step down, and so many others. But my optimism in this regard is tempered by the fact that we have a man, to use that term very loosely, in the White House who has bragged that he can assault women with impunity, who has no fewer than 19 allegations of sexual harassment and assault. While our society puts this kind of man in a position of power, this struggle is not yet over. And in my personal life, the worst this year has been depression. This has been a rough year for me personally. A year ago, I did start taking an antidepressant, which helps blunt the impact. The valleys are not quite so deep as before, but I am still frequently paralyzed, for lack of a better term, by the depression. Unable to overcome the inertia, which holds me down like gravity. For a while, I found an outlet in YouTube, which brought me some comfort, only to hit a wall where I just couldn't bring myself to try, which is why 2 months ago I effectively disappeared. The weight I had lost in 2015 and 2016 has returned, as I struggle to stay motivated to do what I already know needs to be done. And as I look out at the world, the darkness I can see seems to be so much stronger and more prevalent than the light, the despair so much stronger than the hope. Lastly, the best thing in my personal life remains, of course, my husband. I'm not easy to live with. And it's not just the depression. I'm also stubborn and opinionated and bullheaded, but he's a rock for me, a stable island in this sea of chaos. And I would not be here if it wasn't for him. So that's my list. What are your thoughts? What do you think the best and worst of this year has been? Please share in the comments below. Thank you very much for listening. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you next year. Be good. And if you can't be good, be wicked well.